and future directions. Yeah. Sorry for being late. Actually, we have a transition room from classroom 10 into classroom 15. Okay. Because this is just recorded, so I will start again. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you all for coming to the lunch talk. We will have Professor Raihani, MED, PhD, who would like to speak about multicultural education in Indonesia, concept, practices, and future directions. I have known Professor Raihani a long time ago because we did a PhD in the same university, the University of Melbourne, and recently, many of my students quoted Professor Raihani's work on leadership, like what I remember is like Dian and Poppy. I think there are so many of my who wrote directly. So I know the excitement of meeting the professor directly. Yeah. And I hope that I miss in the recording. Professor Raihani, time is yours. Pak Bambang, you are here now, so I will give to you, but I have already opened the session, so now Prof Raihani will go right away to present his talk. Time is yours, Professor Raihani. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. You would like to read the CV of Prof Raihani while Prof Raihani share the screen?
Betul mas, karena pakai
Oh gimana?
Alright, okay.
Tes. Di Prof Raihani, you are still muted. His CV or you just go.
Yeah.
Kalian aja mas, kecilkan. Echo. Right. So, welcome all. Okay, thank you very much, Bu Nina, Prof Nina, for the introduction to this lunch talk sessions. Okay, I know Prof Raihani for a long time, so we have. I still remember when I was studying in New Zealand. So one part of Prof. Raihani actually invite me to write a book chapter regarding teachers preparation in Indonesia. After that, I have an invitation to write about Islamic educational leadership. So, and guess what? Most of the references come from his work also, right? So we are very fortunate. One of the expertise Prof. Raihani is also about
To tell you, I expanded my expertise from curriculum studies, school leadership into more, to me, it's more challenging than before. That is multicultural education, in which we have to employ various perspectives in seeing the phenomena of diversity and education in Indonesia. So I would like to share with you some information about my authority in multicultural education when I started to be interested in studying and working on education, and then concepts of multiculturalism in brief, and multicultural education, multicultural education practices in Indonesia, and how we actually will be going, with the Indonesian education in terms of multicultural education. Well, this is a very short talk and very short presentation actually, so I cannot cover all the things related to multicultural education in Indonesia. This is my engagement with multicultural education. It starts from my postdoctoral fellowship at University of Western Australia, where I, Professor Lynn Parker and Professor C.Y. Hoon working together under the Australian Research Council Discovery Project from 2009 to 2012. The title of the project at the time was Education for Multicultural Indonesia. So I have produced some works until now, actually, regarding the multicultural education or education and diversity in Indonesia. You can find in my researchgate.net or .com, I forgot, .net, yeah, about my so first I would like to talk about multiculturalism. This is just a brief introduction, and is an multicultural diversity in cultural beliefs, traditions, and political associations, and also an approach to eliminate discrimination in any form due to different races, ethnicities, religions, and anything that is usually given. That and unfortunately, this kind of discrimination still happen. Some people different certain places, for example, yeah, and also race, etc. From the history, multiculturalism actually rooted on civil rights movement that was done to be against white European supremacy around 1950s, resulting in concept of, among others, Anglo-conformity, and then it developed to melting pot and then multiculturalism. And to love this in society only about culturalism has to be dragged into the efforts or process of creating social justice in society, that every member more than respecting, actually. So to us to
multiculturalists, because when you have the assimilationist, then you expect the minority to follow the majority values and traditions rather than accepting their existence. So thank you again for your presentation.
Well, thank you, Nisa, for very insightful comments. And I agree with you that that's why in my book, I wrote that the approach that Indonesian government, used to understand or develop or implement the multicultural education is very sporadic, still very sporadic. There are some policies talking about religion, about multicultural education, the diversity differences, but actually in practice, they are against, the teachers, the principal are against the that's very policy of multicultural education. And I was thinking also about religious multiculturalism. That is, the idea is how to create students or people, to become religious but also multiculturalists, because we cannot separate religion from our life, because Indonesia is very much religious country, even though we are not, our constitution is not based on the religion or certain religion, but to me, become multiculturalist, become open to differences, respecting differences, acknowledge and working together with people from other backgrounds. It's not really hinder me from being religious. So this is a kind of things I think that we can work on for the future Indonesia. But until now, I haven't seen any scholars who are consistently working on this idea. Maybe because they see that some religion and diversity or pluralism cannot go hand in hand, but I don't know what's the reason. But I'm really interested in continuing working on this idea. The second one is that the minority issues. I agree with you that in every school that I visited since 2009 to 2018 for research, usually have the minority issues, have the minority being deprived from their own rights to, for example, to worship like Muslims or majority worships. But it is not only happen in a macro context, but also in the micro context where for example, there are majority in our national society, but in school they are minority, and they are still being deprived, from their own rights. For example, Muslims are majority in the country, but then minority in a school, and they are still having problems, struggling with their own, rights. So this is, I think, in the recommendation slide, I suggest that we use a critical pedagogy approach to this kind of problem that is promoting to social justice, and this has to be a common awareness among the teachers, to see the society from the critical perspective, that not everyone has the opportunity, an equal opportunity to learn, to to develop her or his potential. And then somebody has to, like the teacher, have to interfere with this kind of inequalities and promote the affirmation towards the minority. I think I also wrote in one article in Journal of Indonesian Islam about the critical pedagogy in teacher education, and I developed a model of critical pedagogy for Islamic teachers. So this is kind of ideas, I think, that we can, well, from my perspective, that we can work, continuing work on this idea. Well, that's my 2 cents for, and I'm really happy that you are here. So you provide us with your perspective, with the curriculum developers' perspectives, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, is there anything you want to ask? Maybe in the room? Okay, we have 2 students raise their hand. Okay, Abdul.
Very much wonderful presentation, and then wonderful presentation, and it is a very interesting topic when you talk of multiculturalism in a multicultural society, which is Indonesia. I have a few questions that I want to raise to clear my doubt, sort of. In your conceptualization of multiculturalism, you use phrases like diversity, respect.
Sorry, it is not very clear. I mean, it's just on and off, If you cannot hear, I think better to write in the chat if you want to write. Or maybe this is my connection, internet connection. I don't know.
No, I think you're fine, Prof.
Okay.
I think it's their connection.
Maybe you can just speak from Pak Bambang's Zoom, Abdul.
Exactly.
Hello. Are you getting me now?
Yeah, except
Thank
the
you.
echo.
Your presentation was very interesting on a very interesting topic, that is multiculturalism. And one of the countries that fit to explore this context is Indonesia, which is a multicultural society. But at the beginning of your presentation, you tried to conceptualize multiculturalism, and you use several phrases like diversity, mutual respect, harmony, that you are trying to connect it to the ideology itself. However, you use a term that I found disturbing, like if you are in Rome, you do as Romans do. I believe if multiculturalism is to embrace diversity and then expecting individuals to perform or conform to the common practices that they find themselves in, that itself have fundamentally undermined the principles of multiculturalism itself. So this will lead me to Lisa's word, like majority always dictates the minority's behavior, which we find there is always a contradiction in these kind of issues. Again, you talk about multiculturalism education. And in the educational field, again, we have inclusive education, which if you look at these two terms, it's like they are overlapping each other at some point because both are trying to adhere for social justice. I was like, can you set line where there is a distinction between these two terms in the educational field itself? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question, even though that I cannot really hear very clearly. But then I would like to, I think, make it clear about my explanation about multiculturalism in Indonesia, that what you are mentioning was actually my explanation about what has been happening in Indonesia. It is not a conceptualized, it is not a conceptualized theory that I quoted in my explanation. It is what has been happening in society, that in Indonesia we, use or the principle of di mana bumi dipijak di situ langit dijunjung, which is, wherever you are, you have to follow the host, and this is in our country regarded as one way to be safe, to be in accordance with the society, with the majority of the society. So this, like Bu Nisa said, that this is actually minority has to follow the majority. And from the perspective of multiculturalism, it is not actually the way to see and to act, in the context of diverse society like in Indonesia, because every culture has the right to exist, to stand equally together with some other cultures wherever they exist. But respecting the host is not a problem, but then to be merged, to be immersed with the majority culture, it is against the principle of multiculturalism. And then this discussions usually goes to a problematic issue of minority culture, like what in Indonesia has been hitting, like LGBTQ, LGBT, and they want to be admitted as one distinctive culture in the context of Indonesia's religious society. And that is why Bunisa, for example, mentioned about what kind of framework that we have to use to, to decide upon this kind of problematic issues. Even though she is not mentioning explicitly about this issue, but I can catch that the issues of this group, cultural, if we can say cultural group, is always problematic in the debate of multiculturalism, especially in if we want to apply multiculturalism in our country or in any religious country. Actually, it's different from the other countries who that are using a liberal approach to multiculturalism, to diversity, that they can consider this kind of minority culture as valid and then has to be respected and equally with other cultures. That is why I try to come up with an idea of religious multiculturalism, but this is still very premature, to say that this is a good model, but then we can still work on this on the developing this idea, and maybe try to implement in schools in practice. So this is my answer to your question, if I'm not wrong in getting your questions.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Raihani. You want to ask? Okay. So we have another student, last student, who will ask for you, Prof. Okay. Hazard, can you come here?
Assalamualaikum Pak Raihani.
Waalaikumsalam.
Actually, I have two short questions regarding this multicultural education in Indonesia. As you mentioned in your presentation that mostly teachers in schools influence students about these religious minorities and religious differences, cultural diversity. So do you think what are the prevention measures for this, and how, in your view, this could be avoided holistically? So teacher can, like, instead of being influencing students regarding religious diversity and ethnic diversity in a negative way, could be in a positive way. And what do you think about the gap? Because we had, if you know, we had a study on Campus Merdeka internship program, and we found that there is a disparity between rural Indonesia and urban Indonesia. How do you see this issue of multicultural education, the differences in very developed parts of Indonesia, which are like the urban areas exactly, and the areas that are very far from the center? Do you think they are different or similar in terms of this multicultural education? Thank you so much.
Well, very difficult questions, but very important to answer. I think Bunisa may want to answer the second questions about the disparities between urban and rural education. The first one is about the teachers. How do we approach to make the situation is better? I think there is no other way except education, to train the teachers about the importance of multiculturalism, about respecting others. and then also to, and this is very difficult in Indonesia actually, because there are two other competing ideologies, at least two competing ideologies, between moderate views of religion and less moderate views of education of religions, and these ideologies are competing each other, even in the field of school, in the fields of education. So and Indonesian government often cannot control this kind of development. I mean, that the organization that promotes, less tolerant attitude towards some differences still run the programs, from school to school, and even though some organizations are already banned by the government, but then social media, the teachings of religions that are, distributed or aired in social media cannot be controlled, by the government. But to be sure that teacher training that promotes religious moderation, that promotes multiculturalism, is very important. It's very important. This is one way, I think, to overcome this problem. But then, if only teacher training, it doesn't really make very significant difference if we are not using, like what I said, a whole school approach to multicultural education. We have to make it clear that every component of the school has to understand about the importance of diversity, respecting diversity, about multiculturalism, and then the policies, the school programs are designed to support the promotion of multiculturalism in schools. If we want to mention school components that have to work together, in one direction, we can say school leadership, for example. We can say school management, school culture, school policies, curriculum, student organization, parents. And if we cannot work, on building this kind of approach, not really sure that we can have better kind of education that in terms of multicultural education, or respecting diversity, or celebrating diversity, or even more than that, to promote the social justice among people of differences. For the second question, this is very much about the government policies, how to deal with the disparities of urban and rural areas. But I can say that in the rural areas where the society tends to be homogeneous, the attitude of, the positive attitude toward diversity are usually not instilled, not what you call, it's not inherently built in their in themselves. So this is related to the theory of exposure to differences. If we want to build, to educate children, to respect differences, to acknowledge differences, and to effectively work with people from different backgrounds, we have to expose them you have to expose them to diversity. And then rural areas are usually very homogeneous. On the in contrast with the urban areas that are usually more multicultural, more diverse in terms of ethnic and religious background. So the question is maybe whether it has the same importance, you know, to educate children in the urban areas or in the rural areas regarding the multicultural education. This is something that we need to explore more, you know, in the future in our research, whether the rural children still need the same thickness of multicultural education as the urban students do. Maybe that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, really very much thank you for your kind of information and answering the question and also sharing the knowledge and wisdom regard to this one. So Prof. Raihani, I would like to say thank you very much for your what you call as willing to share with us. Okay, and I would like to close this session. Okay, and then please join with me. Applause to Prof. Raihani. Okay, so
Yeah.
right. Okay. With that, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So the session is ended, and then I will close the Zoom session. Thank you very much for your attention and then for sharing your time with us. Okay, goodbye.
Thank you. Pak Raihani, don't leave first. Okay, we will meet. Okay, just for like 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. And other participants, please.
Leave the room.
Yeah. Thank you very much all for coming.
It's okay. I already take the project.
Sufyan, could you take care of classroom 15, please? So this.